but we need your help to do it. Hey, I want to welcome back to the program the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Arkansas, Tim Griffin, is joining us. Tim, thank you so much for calling, sir.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I just got to say, first of all, thank you so much for this letter that you wrote to the task force. The ideas in here are bold, and I really think it's a good roadmap to get us on a conservative path. What made you want to write this letter?
Well, first of all, I appreciate it. Actually, I had just been hearing a lot of different voices regarding where the state should go, where the task force should go specifically, in terms of, what it's going to do, what it's going to look at, the scope and all that. And, some folks had said or have said or are saying or whatever around the Capitol that we ought to just look at form and not relief. And that, I disagree with that. And in addition to being an elected official, I'm a taxpayer and a voter, and I think that most Republicans, most Arkansans probably, if you polled them, most legislators, I would think, agree with the basic principles that, by the way, are not revolutionary. They're in our party platform, right? Of simplifying the code, lowering rates, and doing it by finding savings in government. I mean, so, and I wanted to express my view, and I told some people yesterday if I wasn't an elected official, I would still want to express my view.
Yeah.
I appreciate, I really see an opportunity here. I've talked with a lot of legislators. In fact, I've talked with several today. I've met with several who are on the task force already. Several have reached out to me.
Good. And
we've set up meetings, and Democrat and Republicans, by the way. Look, I really think there's an opportunity here. The people that I talk with want to make the most of this opportunity. And I'm not, I'm a realist as much as anybody else. But I think that this has been put before us, and we need to do everything we can to make it productive. And I'm excited about it. And look, I want to say this too. I'm glad on the transformation side. This is something that I've been talking about for a couple of years since I got in office, and I am excited and appreciative that the governor is letting me be on this advisory board, this transformation advisory board, and I'm excited about it. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
And I love looking at it. And I will say this, Paul. There's some people say, well, we don't have any facts yet. We really can't know what we need to do. Well, first of all, I think we got a lot of facts. And if you've been, anybody that's been around the legislature for years and years ought to have a good idea of where the state ought to go.
Yeah.
And and I totally agree. With regard to the specifics, we need to be methodical, follow the data, look at 49 other states, listen to people that have studied this stuff. I think the folks up at UCA, for example, our Arkansas Center for
Research and Economics. Yeah.
Yeah, they are a fabulous resource. We've got folks around Dan Greenberg and others who are around who know this stuff. Let's use their expertise. I totally agree. In the specifics, we've got to do the research. We've got to get the facts. And I don't know one person who has said otherwise. But at the in the Army, we talk about strategy. operational level and tactical level. At the strategic level, we've got to know, are we going to Jonesboro, or are we going to Texarkana, or are we going to Fayetteville, or are we going to Lake Village? I mean, we sort of got to know the general direction as a vision, as a matter of having a vision. And I just wanted to weigh in on that. And, I heard J.R. Davis of the governor's office, and I really appreciate he was on the radio earlier, and I really appreciate the things he was saying. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he effectively said, yeah, let's do bold. Let's do comprehensive. And so I'm really starting to see a lot of folks on the record publicly saying, well, of course there's got to be relief because that's in the name, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you didn't do relief, that's like the heart hospital saying we only operate on feet. Well, you're the heart hospital, right? I mean, your task force, the task force is reform and relief. So, I'm excited. I feel positive about it, and yeah, I would tell you if I didn't. I think something good will come out of this, no question. But this is not a spectator sport where we should all just sit back and see what happens. This is like all things in our democratic republic. This is something we all should be engaged in. I got an opinion. You got an opinion. Everybody in Arkansas, to the extent they want to weigh in, I think they ought to weigh in.
We're talking with Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, and I really appreciate it. He wrote this letter of these recommendations, his opinion on what the Tax Reform and Relief Legislative Task Force should do, and it's really good stuff. And, you mentioned, that you wrote this maybe in response to what some people were saying. We have the audio of it. I'm not going to play it now, but, Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum at the beginning of the first task force meeting, he said, contrary to news reports, this isn't necessarily about recommending a tax cut, for the next General Assembly. And it kind of seems to me that maybe some people, they know the situation of Arkansas, and they just maybe they don't think real relief, real reform, real transformation is possible. So they're now trying to kind of lower expectations. And I hope that this letter kind of gets the train back on the tracks.
Well, look, I'm not, there are a lot of people with different opinions, and we've all got one, and I'll let them have theirs. I will tell you, I feel very strongly about mine. Here's what was particularly frustrating to me. You have a lot of people who talk about, or some people talk about, let's make Arkansas more competitive by reforming the tax code. And then in the same breath say, but not tax relief. And my point in my letter was, look, it totally agree. We need to reform, which means make it less complicated, simplify, totally agree. But it's the high taxes that scare growth off, that scare investment off, that make us uncompetitive more than anything else. It's the rate. It's the amount. It's the, and I made the point in the letter, as you know, where I said, look, you don't have many people saying, hey, the high taxes don't bother me. It's just so complicated to pay them. That's not what people say. They generally say it's the price of doing business, right? Mm-hmm. And there are other factors, certainly. There's regulatory burden and availability of certain workers and all that stuff. Totally get it. But no, and here's the other thing. A lot of people have different opinions. That's cool. That's what it's all about. It's not personal. This is something I feel very passionately about. I have 2 young kids, and I want them to be able to work and stay and raise their kids in Arkansas one day. And they're a long way from it. They're young. And so I sort of feel like, we gotta step up our game to compete, and this is an opportunity. Let's do it.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I certainly know. I think it's an opportunity, and I hope there's good stuff that comes out of this. Again, we're talking with Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin. Now, Tim, when you wrote this letter, one of the reasons, I mean, I read it. I know it's conservative because it's, these are really conservative, bold ideas. But I also know, I guess some circumstantial evidence would be the Arkansas Democrat Party decided to tweet at you, and it said something to the effect of, since he thinks he's relevant. And I just thought that was interesting that you put forth some conservative ideas and you get criticized by the Democrat Party.
Well, look, they're doing what they do, and that's not surprising. They're the other party. They're the little opposition. Doesn't bother me one bit. Look, I think at the end of the day, if people want to pay attention to the letter and the ideas in it, think it's relevant, that's great. If they don't, hey, that's cool too. That's their prerogative. I can tell you this. I think it's, here's the thing. If I were to never speak out on anything, and we had this conversation in 2014 when I was when I left Congress for my kids and ran for lieutenant governor. If I were to say nothing, not comment on issues, then people would say, well, what's the lieutenant governor doing?
Yeah.
And then when I do, it's like, well, I can't believe he thinks he's relevant. Look, all I know is the taxpayers of Arkansas pay me to do a job. And they give me, as part of that, they give me the opportunity to weigh in on things. But you know what? Any voter, any taxpayer can weigh in on things. I feel like I'm earning my keep by doing something.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: you think part of this conversation, and I think you bring this up. I mean, spending's got to. We have to get spending under control too. I mean, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to control spending. Is that right?
Well, that was my third point. I mean, these are all of these, and again, I appreciate the governor making me vice chair of the Transformation Board, working with Mike Carroll and Amy Fetcher and those folks. Because, look, this is something I believe is the single most important transformation is the single most important big-ticket item, because I see reform and relief as these doors that we need to walk through, tax reform, tax relief. The way you get into those doors is this golden key called transformation. If we do not free up savings through transformation or some other innovation, modernization, pick your words, but if we don't do that, then we are never going to be able to make the bold, big tax changes. Because when you do, you inevitably are going to lower rates to be competitive. You're going to probably, to some extent, lower revenue to the state. So in order to keep a balanced budget, which we should have and we must have under the law, you got to find the savings that you can, I like to say, the savings that you can spend down.
Yeah.
Right? That you can return to the taxpayer, or that you can dedicate in part to highways and infrastructure. Hang on, Mom. Give me a second. Thanks. Hang on, Mom. I'm on the radio. My mom's opening my truck
That's
door.
fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So in any event, this is not some secret sauce, on the Big Mac, which is my favorite. This is just math, right? And when I see a quote like I saw today by a legislator saying, well, you can't have it all. You can't do all these things with tax relief or whatever and do this and that. Well, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. What you do is you find savings through modernization, and you find savings, and you take that savings and you look at it and you say, what do we do with this? Oh, well, let's return this much to the taxpayer. Let's put this in highways and infrastructure, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you figure out what to do with it. But there is so much to be saved taking a state government, and this is an issue that has existed for generations. And it's not just here; it's in the federal government.
Yeah.
You can make every argument I made to you can apply it to the federal government. You can apply it to most states because government doesn't have competition, Paul. So FedEx and UPS, they change all the time to survive because they're competing with each other. We don't have market forces, so changing government is much more difficult, and it needs to be all hands on deck. And that's why, I'm so keen on the legislature, and I say this in that letter, publicly embracing what transformation is all about, because they hold so much of the power to get. I mean, there's some things the governor can do, and I'm not the governor, obviously, but there's some things Governor Hutchinson can do and has done unilaterally without legislation. Other things he's had to do with legislation. But it would be very helpful if all of us could say, yes, we need to reform taxes. Yes, we need to lower our taxes.
Yes.
And yes, the way we're going to do this is by getting savings, by bringing our government into 2017 so that it has an iPad 2017 mentality as opposed to, a Cold War, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s mentality.
Yeah.
And none of that is new. None of that's new, Paul. I mean, I'm just trying to be a cheerleader because there are a lot of people doing a lot of hard work on this, and I want to see them succeed.
I appreciate you so much, Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, everybody. Thank you so much for speaking out. Thanks for writing the letter, and I'd love to have you on again soon, sir.
Yep, I'll see you in your neck of the woods real soon.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it,
God
folks.
bless you.
Before we